The church doors swung open with a thundering echo that silenced every guest. 300 people turned in their seats. The bride froze at the altar, her white gown suddenly feeling like a prison. The groom's breath caught in his throat. Standing in the doorway was an older woman. Gray streaks in her black hair, worn hands clutched together. She wasn't wearing a dress. She wasn't wearing heels. She was wearing a waitress uniform. The same uniform she had worn the night before when she was humiliated. The same uniform she was wearing when she was called a worthless immigrant. The same uniform she was wearing when she was fired. The groom took one step forward, then another. Tears began streaming down his face. His voice cracked as he spoke two words that changed everything. "Mom, is that really you?" The bride's face went white. Her perfectly painted lips trembled. Her eyes darted between her groom and the woman in the doorway, the woman she had destroyed just 24 hours ago. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how we got here, we need to go back 48 hours. Back to the night before the rehearsal dinner. Back to when Megan Clarke had no idea that the woman she was about to humiliate would turn out to be her future mother-in-law. Ruth Santos had worked at La Maison restaurant for 8 years. 8 years of carrying plates. 8 years of refilling glasses. 8 years of smiling at customers who sometimes treated her like she was invisible. But Ruth never complained. Not once. Because Ruth had a secret she had carried for 32 years. Every night after her shift, Ruth would go to her locker. She would open it slowly, and she would look at a photograph hidden behind her work apron. A photograph of a baby boy. A photograph taken 32 years ago on the worst and best day of her life. The day she gave him away. Ruth was 16 when she came to America. A teenage girl from Manila with nothing but hope and a dream. She worked 3 jobs. She slept in shelters. She did everything she could to survive. Then she got pregnant. The father disappeared the moment he found out. Ruth was alone, 17 years old, undocumented, terrified. She carried that baby for 9 months. She loved him before she ever saw his face. And when he was born, she held him for exactly 1 hour. 60 minutes of heaven before her heart shattered into a million pieces. "I can't give you the life you deserve," she whispered to him. But I promise you, someone will." She handed him to the adoption agency. She signed the papers with tears blurring her vision. And she walked away. But she never forgot. Not for a single day. Ruth spent the next 3 decades working, saving, searching. She became a legal citizen. She built a small life for herself, but she never stopped looking for her son. Then, 8 years ago, she found him. His name was Daniel Santos Mitchell. He had been adopted by a loving family. He had gone to law school. He had become a successful attorney. He was everything Ruth had prayed he would become. But Ruth never approached him. She never introduced herself. She never disrupted his life. Instead, she got a job at his favorite restaurant. The restaurant where he celebrated birthdays. The restaurant where he brought clients. The restaurant where he had his first date with his girlfriend. Ruth watched him from a distance. She served his table sometimes, though he never knew who she was. She memorized his smile. She noticed he had her eyes. She cried in the storage room after every visit. It was enough. Just seeing him happy was enough. But now everything was about to change. Because tomorrow, her son was getting married. And tonight was the rehearsal dinner. Ruth looked at the photograph one last time. Her fingers trembled. "My baby is getting married tomorrow," she whispered. "I just want to see him one more time. Then I'll disappear forever." She closed her locker. She straightened her uniform. She walked onto the restaurant floor. She had no idea what was coming. The rehearsal dinner party arrived at 7 o'clock sharp. 15 people dressed in expensive clothes. Designer bags, luxury watches. The kind of people who looked at waitstaff like they were furniture. Leading the group was a woman who made Ruth's stomach tighten. Megan Clarke, the bride. Platinum blonde hair styled perfectly. Ice blue eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. A designer dress that probably cost more than Ruth made in 3 months. And an expression of permanent dissatisfaction. "This table is unacceptable," Megan announced before she even sat down. "It's too close to the kitchen. Move us." The manager scrambled to accommodate her. Tables were rearranged. Other diners were displaced. Nothing was good enough. Ruth watched from across the room. So this was the woman her son was marrying. This was the woman who would become his wife. Something cold settled in Ruth's chest. Elena, a young waitress and Ruth's closest friend at the restaurant, walked over with worried eyes. "Ruth, they assigned you to that table. Do you want me to switch with you?" Ruth shook her head. "No, mija. This might be my last chance to be close to him. I need to do this." "But that bride looks like trouble." "I've handled worse. I'll be fine." Ruth picked up her notepad. She straightened her shoulders. She walked toward the table. Megan was already complaining about the bread. "This is stale. Does this establishment not understand freshness? And these water glasses have spots on them. Spots? At these prices?" Her maid of honor, Courtney, nodded along with every complaint. "Absolutely unacceptable, Meg. You should talk to the manager again." Ruth approached the table with a warm smile. "Good evening, everyone. Welcome to La Maison. My name is Ruth, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you with some—" "Where's Daniel?" Megan interrupted, not even looking at Ruth. "He should be here by now." One of the groomsmen checked his phone. He texted, said he's stuck at the office. Big case. He'll be here in an hour. Megan's face twisted with annoyance. Of course. Work always comes first with him. Fine, whatever. Let's just order. Ruth stood patiently as the table made their requests. Complicated modifications. Allergy concerns that changed by the minute. Megan sent back her first drink because there was too much ice. She sent back her second drink because there was not enough ice. Ruth handled it all with grace. She had 30 years of practice swallowing her pride. But then it happened. Ruth was reaching across to refill Megan's wine glass. It was a careful pour. Steady hands. Perfect form. But Megan suddenly moved her arm. She gestured dramatically while complaining about the centerpiece. Her elbow hit Ruth's hand. A single drop of red wine landed on the white tablecloth. Just one drop. Barely visible. The table went silent. Megan looked down at the tiny red spot. Then she looked up at Ruth. Her ice blue eyes turned to fire. "You stupid woman." Ruth's heart froze. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Sorry? You're sorry?" Megan's voice rose loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Do you have any idea how much this tablecloth costs? Do you have any idea who I am?" "It was an accident, ma'am. Please let me—" "An accident?" Megan laughed cruelly. "Is that what you call incompetence where you come from?" The words hit Ruth like a slap. "I can barely understand your accent. How long have you been in this country? Do they not teach basic serving skills in whatever village you crawled out of?" Ruth stood frozen. 30 years of dignity. 30 years of taking the high road. All of it crumbling under the weight of this woman's hatred. "Ma'am, please. I apologize sincerely." "I don't want your apology. I want you gone." Megan turned to Courtney. "Get the manager, now." Courtney practically ran to fetch him. Ruth felt tears burning behind her eyes. Not from the humiliation. She could handle humiliation. But from the knowledge that this cruel woman was about to marry her son. This woman with poison in her veins was about to become family. The manager arrived. A nervous man named Gregory, who valued wealthy customers above all else. "Is there a problem here?" "A problem?" Megan stood up dramatically. "This worthless immigrant just ruined our rehearsal dinner. She spilled wine everywhere. She can barely speak English. She's a disgrace to your establishment." Gregory looked at the tablecloth. He saw the tiny drop. He knew the truth. But he also knew Megan's family spent thousands at this restaurant every year. "Ruth, perhaps you should fire her." The words hung in the air. "Excuse me?" Gregory asked. "I said fire her. Right now. I want to watch." Megan crossed her arms. "If she's still employed here by the time I count to 10, my family will never spend another dime at this restaurant. And trust me, we will make sure everyone in our circle knows why." Gregory's face went pale. He looked at Ruth. Ruth, who had worked there for 8 years. Ruth, who had never had a single complaint. Ruth, who covered shifts for everyone. Ruth, who stayed late without overtime pay. Ruth? he said quietly. I'm sorry. Please collect your things. The restaurant fell completely silent. Other diners watched in horror. Staff members looked away in shame. Ruth untied her apron slowly. Her hands trembled, but she refused to let a single tear fall. Not in front of this woman. Faster, Megan snapped. Some of us have a wedding to prepare for. Ruth removed her apron completely. She folded it neatly. She looked at Megan one last time. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, Ruth said quietly. Whatever is making you so unhappy, I hope you find peace. Megan laughed. Peace? I'm getting married tomorrow to a successful attorney. I have more peace than you'll ever know. Now get out of my sight. Ruth walked away. Head high, steps steady. She made it to the storage room before the tears finally came. Elena rushed in after her. Ruth. Oh my God, Ruth, I'm so sorry. That was horrible. That woman is a monster. Ruth sat on an old crate, sobbing quietly. You don't understand, Mija. You don't understand. What don't I understand? She's a racist, entitled nightmare. Daniel deserves so much better. Ruth looked up at Elena, her eyes red, her heart shattered. Danielle is my son. Elena's face went blank. What? Daniel, the groom. He's my son. I gave him up for adoption 32 years ago. I've been working here for 8 years just to be close to him, just to watch him. And now that woman, Ruth's voice broke. That woman is going to marry my boy. Elena collapsed onto a crate beside her. Ruth. Oh my God. Ruth. I never told him who I am. I never wanted to disrupt his life. He has a family, a good family who raised him right. I just wanted to see him grow. I just wanted to know he was happy. But he's marrying her. Ruth nodded slowly. And now you see why I'm crying. Not because she fired me, but because my son is about to marry someone with that much cruelty in her heart. Elena grabbed Ruth's hands. You have to tell him. You have to tell Daniel who you are. No. Ruth shook her head firmly. His wedding is tomorrow. I won't ruin that for him. I won't make his special day about me. But Ruth, no, Mija, I've stayed hidden for 8 years. I'll stay hidden forever if I have to. His happiness is all that matters. Ruth stood up. She wiped her tears. She collected her few belongings from her locker. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I'm going to go home. I'm going to pray for my son. And tomorrow, I'm going to find a way to see him one last time. From a distance. Like always. And then I'm going to disappear. Ruth hugged Elena tightly. Thank you for being my friend, for seeing me. Most people look right through women like me. But you never did. Elena was crying now too. You're the best person I know, Ruth. You deserve so much more than this. Ruth smiled sadly. I have exactly what I deserve. A son who grew up loved. A son who became a good man. That's more than I ever dared to dream. She walked out of the restaurant for the last time. If you're feeling something right now, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is going to change everything. Daniel is about to discover a truth that will turn his wedding day upside down. Stay with me. Daniel arrived at the restaurant 40 minutes after Ruth left. He found his rehearsal dinner party laughing and drinking champagne. Megan was holding court, telling a story that made everyone chuckle. What did I miss? Daniel asked, kissing Megan on the cheek. Oh, just dealing with incompetent staff. Megan rolled her eyes. One of the waitresses spilled wine everywhere. I had to have her fired on the spot. Something flickered in Daniel's chest. Fired? For spilling wine. It was more than that. She was rude, could barely speak English, probably an illegal. Megan waved her hand dismissively. Anyway, it's handled. Let's enjoy the rest of our night. Daniel sat down, but something felt wrong. The staff seemed tense. They avoided eye contact. The manager personally served their table for the rest of the evening, apologizing repeatedly. After dinner, Daniel pulled aside one of the younger waitresses. She looked nervous. What really happened tonight? He asked gently. Before I arrived? The waitress glanced around. I shouldn't say anything. Please, I need to know. She took a deep breath. There was a waitress named Ruth. She'd worked here for 8 years. She accidentally got one tiny drop of wine on the tablecloth. Your fiancé, she screamed at her, called her terrible things, racist things, demanded she be fired. And the manager did it, right there, in front of everyone. Daniel felt his blood run cold. What did she say? Odd exactly? The waitress repeated Megan's words. Every cruel syllable, every hateful phrase. Daniel stood completely still. This wasn't the woman he thought he was marrying. This was someone else, someone ugly underneath the perfect exterior. The waitress, Daniel said slowly. Ruth. What was her last name? Santos, I think. Ruth Santos. The world stopped spinning. Ruth Santos. Daniel had been searching for his birth mother for 5 years. He had hired private investigators. He had chased dead ends across 3 states. And for 5 years, one name had haunted his dreams. Ruth Santos, the teenage Filipina immigrant who gave him up when she had nothing. The woman who loved him enough to let him go. Where did she go? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. She just left. She was crying. Daniel's hands were shaking. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. A photograph he had carried for years. A photograph his adoption agency had given him. He showed it to the waitress. Is this her? Is this Ruth? The waitress looked at the old photograph of a young Filipina woman. Then she nodded slowly. That's her. 30 years ago, but that's definitely her. Daniel couldn't breathe. His birth mother had been here. She had been working at his favorite restaurant. She had been serving him for years. And his fiancée had just destroyed her. Daniel walked back to the table in a daze. Megan was laughing about something. Champagne bubbles rising in her glass. Not a care in the world. Babe, you look pale, she said. Are you okay? Fine. The word felt like glass in his throat. Just tired. Big day tomorrow. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in his home office staring at the photograph, tears streaming silently down his face. His mother had been watching him. For 8 years, she had been watching him from a distance, serving him food, refilling his drinks, and he never knew. Why didn't she say anything? But he knew why. Because Ruth Santos had given up everything for him. Her youth, her dreams, her future. She gave him away so he could have a better life. And she never wanted to disrupt that life, even now. At 3 a.m, Daniel called his private investigator. I need an address, Ruth Santos. She worked at La Maison restaurant until tonight. I need to know where she lives. I'll have it within the hour. At 4 a.m, Daniel had the address, a small apartment in a modest neighborhood across town. He wanted to go immediately. But something stopped him. He needed to think. He needed to decide what to do about Megan. The woman he was supposed to marry had revealed her true self. She had called his mother a worthless immigrant. She had humiliated her publicly. She had taken her job without a shred of remorse. And she had no idea what she had done. At 6 a.m, Daniel called his adoptive mother, Grace Mitchell, the woman who had raised him with love and kindness. Danny? What's wrong? Why are you calling so early? Mom, I found her. Silence on the other end. You found Ruth? Grace's voice trembled. She's been here the whole time, working at La Maison, watching me from a distance. And last night, Megan. His voice cracked. Megan had her fired. She humiliated her. She called her terrible things. And she has no idea who Ruth is. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. What are you going to do, sweetheart? I don't know if I can marry her, Mom, knowing what she did, knowing who she really is underneath. Then don't. But the wedding is today. 300 guests. Everything is planned. Megan's family spent a fortune. Danny, listen to me. You have spent 5 years searching for your birth mother. 5 years dreaming of this moment. And now you found her. But she's hurting. She's alone. She thinks she lost her job and her dignity and any chance of ever knowing her son. Daniel wiped his tears. Meanwhile, you're about to marry a woman who showed you exactly who she is. Believe her, Danny. When people show you who they are, believe them. What would Dad say? Grace laughed softly through her own tears. All he would say, "Go get your mother." Both of them. The wedding was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. St. Catherine's Cathedral, 300 guests, flowers everywhere, a string quartet, everything perfect. Daniel arrived early. He stood at the altar, his mind somewhere else entirely. Megan arrived fashionably late, radiant in white, smiling like a woman who had won the lottery. She had no idea her world was about to collapse. The ceremony began. The pastor welcomed everyone. Scripture was read. Vows were prepared. And then came the moment. If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. The traditional pause, usually silent, usually nothing but a formality. But today, the church doors opened. Every head turned, every breath stopped. Standing in the doorway was an older Filipino woman, gray streaks in her black hair, warm brown skin, gentle eyes filled with tears. She was wearing a waitress uniform. She hadn't come to object. She had come to see her son one last time. She had found out which church. She had snuck in during the ceremony. She just wanted one final glimpse before she disappeared forever. But the doors were heavier than she expected. They swung open wide, and suddenly everyone was staring. Ruth froze like a deer in headlights. Megan's face twisted with recognition and rage. "Are you kidding me right now? Security! Get this woman out of here. That's the waitress from last night." But Daniel was already moving, walking down the aisle toward the doors, tears streaming down his face, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. Ruth tried to back away. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll leave. Don't." Daniel's voice cracked. "Please don't leave." He reached her. He stood before her. This woman who gave him life. This woman who loved him enough to let him go. This woman who spent 32 years carrying the weight of that sacrifice. "I know who you are," Daniel whispered. "I've been looking for you my whole life." Ruth's knees buckled. Daniel caught her. "I know you're Ruth Santos. I know you were 16 when you had me. I know you gave me up because you wanted me to have a better life. And I know you've been watching over me for 8 years, serving me at my favorite restaurant, never saying a word, never asking for anything." Ruth was sobbing now. "I didn't want to disrupt your life. You were so happy. You had such a good family. I just wanted to see you. That's all I ever wanted." "Mom." The word fell from Daniel's lips like a prayer. "I finally found you. I finally found you." He pulled her into his arms. He held her like he would never let go. 32 years of separation. 32 years of wondering. And now, finally, they were together. The church was silent. Guests were crying. Even the pastor wiped his eyes. But Megan was not crying. Megan was shaking with fury. She stormed down the aisle, her white gown trailing behind her like a battle flag. "Daniel, what are you doing? This is our wedding. You're hugging the waitress who ruined my rehearsal dinner." Daniel slowly released Ruth. He turned to face Megan. His eyes were different now. Cold. Clear. "Yeah, I know what you did last night." Megan's face flickered with uncertainty. "What are you talking about? I know you screamed at her. I know you called her a worthless immigrant. I know you mocked her accent. I know you had her fired for a single drop of wine that wasn't even her fault. So what? She was incompetent. She deserved it. She's my mother." The words echoed through the cathedral. 300 guests gasped as one. Megan stumbled backward. That's impossible. "You said your birth mother was..." "Her name is Ruth Santos. She was a teenage immigrant who gave me up because she had nothing. She loved me so much that she let me go. And she spent the last 8 years working at that restaurant just to be near me, just to watch me from a distance, never asking for anything. Never wanting to disrupt my life." Daniel's voice broke. "And you called her worthless. You called her garbage. You tried to destroy her. And you didn't even know who she was." Megan's face cycled through expressions. Shock. Fear. Then something uglier. Defiance. "I didn't know. How could I possibly have known? This isn't my fault." "That's exactly the point, Megan. You didn't know who she was. And you still treated her like she was less than human. You still called her a worthless immigrant. You still humiliated her in front of an entire restaurant. He took a step closer. You didn't treat her badly because of who she is to me. You treated her badly because of who you are. And I can't spend my life with someone like that. Megan's eyes went wide. Daniel, don't do this. We can talk about this. We can work through this. The wedding is right here. Everyone is watching. Let them watch. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out the wedding ring. I can't marry you, Megan. I won't. You're choosing a waitress over me? Daniel looked at Ruth, at the woman who had sacrificed everything, at the mother he had searched for his entire life. I'm choosing my mother, and I'm choosing to be with someone who treats all people with dignity, not just the ones who can do something for them. He handed the ring to Megan. Goodbye, Megan. Megan stood frozen. Her perfect makeup, her perfect dress, her perfect wedding, all of it crumbling in real time. She turned to Courtney for support, but Courtney was already backing away, distancing herself from the disaster. She turned to her parents. They looked away in shame. She turned to the guests. They stared at her with new eyes, eyes that had heard the truth about who she really was. Megan screamed, a raw, ugly sound that echoed off the cathedral walls. Then she grabbed her dress and ran, out the side door, away from everyone. She was never seen in that social circle again. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a moment to hit that like button and leave a comment below telling me what you would have done in Daniel's position. Would you have gone through with the wedding? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. After Megan fled, Daniel turned back to Ruth. She was still trembling, still crying, still unable to believe this was real. I don't deserve this, she whispered. I gave you away. I abandoned you. You gave me life, Daniel replied. You loved me enough to give me a chance at a better future. That's not abandonment. That's the greatest sacrifice a mother can make. Grace Mitchell walked down the aisle. Daniel's adoptive mother, the woman who had raised him with love and kindness for 32 years. Ruth saw her coming and tensed. She didn't know what to expect. Judgment? Resentment? This woman had raised the son Ruth had given away. But Grace didn't stop until she was standing directly in front of Ruth. Thank you, Grace said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for giving me my son. Thank you for loving him enough to let him go. And thank you for watching over him all these years. She opened her arms. Welcome to our family, Ruth. You're not losing a son today. You're gaining a family. Ruth collapsed into Grace's embrace. Two mothers, two women who loved the same son in different ways. United by that love. Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them. The three of them stood there, crying and holding each other, while 300 guests watched in tearful silence. Later that evening, they all gathered at Grace's home. Not for a wedding reception, for a reunion. Daniel sat beside Ruth, holding her hand, asking her everything. About her life, about her journey, about the years she spent watching him from a distance. Why didn't you ever say anything? He asked. Because you were happy, Ruth replied. You had everything I wanted for you. A family, an education, a future. I didn't want to complicate that. I didn't want you to feel obligated to someone who gave you away. You didn't give me away, Mom. You gave me wings. Ruth broke down again. 32 years of tears finally being released. Grace sat on Ruth's other side. You know, Ruth, I've always told Daniel that he was chosen. That we chose him specifically because we loved him at first sight. But now I realize there's more to the story. You chose us too. You trusted us with your greatest treasure. I've been so scared, Ruth admitted. Scared that he would hate me. Scared that you would resent me. Scared that I was doing the wrong thing by staying close. You could never do the wrong thing by loving him, Grace said firmly. And from now on, you don't have to love him from a distance. You're part of this family. Officially. Daniel squeezed Ruth's hand. I was supposed to start a new chapter of my life today. I thought I was getting married, but instead, I got something better. I got my mother back. 6 months later, Daniel opened a new law firm. It was called Santos Legal Aid. It specialized in immigrant rights, in helping women like Ruth, women who came to America with nothing but hope, women who deserved dignity and respect. Ruth didn't work as a waitress anymore. She worked at the front desk of her son's law firm, greeting clients, making them feel welcome, making them feel seen. Every immigrant who walked through those doors met Ruth first, and she would hold their hands and tell them her story. Tell them that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always hope, always a chance for reunion, always a possibility for a happy ending. Elena, the young waitress who had befriended Ruth at the restaurant, was now in college. Ruth paid for her tuition. She was studying to become a social worker, to help families like hers. And Megan? Megan tried to spin the story, tried to make herself the victim. But in the age of social media, the truth spreads faster than lies. Her reputation never recovered. Last anyone heard, she moved to another city where nobody knew her name. Karma always collects its debts. Every Sunday, Daniel has dinner with both of his mothers. Grace and Ruth sit side by side, trading stories, laughing together, united by their love for the same son. And every Sunday before they eat, Ruth says a prayer, the same prayer she has said for 32 years. Thank you, Lord, for watching over my son. Thank you for giving him a beautiful life. And thank you for letting me be a small part of it. Only now, she doesn't have to watch from a distance. Now, she's right there at the table, where she always belonged. Life doesn't always give us second chances, but when it does, we have to grab them with both hands. Ruth spent 32 years in the shadows, loving from afar, sacrificing without recognition, and in the end, her love was rewarded beyond anything she could have imagined. Not because she demanded it, not because she forced it, but because she remained true to who she was, humble, kind, patient, loving. And when her son finally found her, she didn't have to pretend to be anything other than exactly who she was. A mother who never stopped loving, even when it hurt. The woman who tried to destroy her lost everything. The woman who had nothing gained everything. Because in the end, it's not about money. It's not about status. It's not about fancy weddings or designer dresses. It's about how you treat people, especially the ones who can do nothing for you. Ruth Santos knew that truth from the very beginning, and now her son knows it too. Thanks for staying until the end of this story. If it moved you, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. And remember, the way you treat the invisible ones reveals exactly who you really are. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And more importantly, take care of each other.